pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh, man. Hello. Wow, look at that jalopy parked outside the studio.
Yeah.
Ain't that something? It, at one time, was a real work of art. Now, it's, well, boy, it's seen better days. Man. Anyway, wish I could show it to you. Well, I guess we could if we turned the camera, but let's not. Those guys didn't want to be on TV, or maybe they did. How you doing? Hi, it's a Friday. Thank God. And I'll be with you for about an hour. We'll talk about stuff. It's the 5th of May, and all is not right with the world. I said yesterday, and I'm pretty much going to stick to my guns, that all of the celebration that we saw yesterday at the White House and in Congress is, to say the least, premature. Big time. Celine, do you remember the lyrics to the How a Bill Becomes a Law? You do?
Not all of them, but I remember at least the beginning.
Okay, well, okay, because, I mean, it passes the House. I mean, this bill did not in any way go through the kind of process that usually just a dinky kind of a piece of legislation does.
Do you want me to play a little bit of it?
I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill? Let's play a little bit and realize that this bill that completely alters, if it were enacted into law, I think close to a quarter of the economy did not go through this process. Let's hear what we got here.
See if I can make it happen.
Okay, maybe she can't make it happen. I have to tell you, this is before my time. So what did that... There we go.
You sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington.
We just need it.
Well, I wonder who
more
that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will, but today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have
Yeah, and I got news for you. You're still just a bill on Capitol Hill. As for going through committee, barely. As for public hearings, not. As for bringing in stakeholders to talk about the bill before you put it in final form, stakeholders like people, like insurance companies, the big boys, hospitals, doctors, nurses. Nope, none of them testified before any congressional hearing. These Republicans simply cobbled together a bill that could get enough votes so that they could stage that photo op they did yesterday like they're governing, like they're doing their jobs. Look what we did! Woo-wee! Woo-wee! Look what we did. We actually passed a bill. It's not a law. And they did it without a modicum of the kind of, I don't know why the word that occurred to me was foreplay. Not even a modicum of foreplay. They just went right. I mean, the fact that they did it before the Congressional Budget Office, that's next to never would you do that in any kind of measure, let alone one of this import and consequence. Jesus, God almighty. I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. These jerks, did you see the picture of them all? A bunch of white men. Just thrilled with themselves. And did you see Trump? I couldn't watch, but I swear I saw him say something. And do you believe I'm the president? Did he say that? I think so. Yeah, I'm the president. And then he turns around to the guys. So for their adulation, and these are grown men. And they're like, yeah, Mr. You know how scary it is to hope that Mitch McConnell will save you? Well, I just want to say, I hope what they all did yesterday was sign their own death warrant. I hope that their constituents, although I have to admit, we all know now that a lot of constituents pay absolutely no attention whatsoever and continue to reelect people who blithely go around screwing them. But they vote for him again. You know why they vote for him again? Because once someone who works with my sister-in-law called his congressional office to ask for some help in getting something, and do you know he came through. It's stuff like that. I think he's a great guy, even if he's going to take my health insurance away. Oh, gosh. So, I don't want to, I'm not going to talk about the particulars because, like a lot of people who voted for that bill yesterday, I haven't read it. It's like when I interview an author, I read the book. How quaint. So, I don't know. Okay, so, snap out of it, Colin. Snap out of it. So I had somebody interview me yesterday for a local publication. And I am such a lousy interview. Oh, man. I don't like being asked questions. Or I do, but then I don't like the fact that this guy was so good. He was asking really, I thought, pretty penetrating questions. And I was a fumble bumble because they were personal. They were about me. They were like, well, why did you think that? And do you have regrets that you didn't do that? And it's like all this sort of self-reflective stuff that I don't think I engage in. And God, by the time it was over, I felt like I'd either been to a shrink or I needed one. I felt like such an idiot. I apologized to him. I said, I'm sorry. And then I wrote him an email later. I'm sorry. I was so inarticulate. And, of course, he's saying, oh, no, you're wrong. Thank you for saying blah. But he was good. I mean, he was a great interviewer in that he had no set questions. He just listened to me and then asked, I guess, very penetrating questions, which I realized I didn't have answers for. Basic questions like, well, why did you do that? Major things, in my life. Why did you take a left there instead of a right? And I realized this is the part of me that is mysterious, even to myself. that I don't ever really have a sense of where I've talked about this, where I'm going, what I want. I'm always amazed by people who know what they want. Celine, you know what you want.
Mostly.
Pretty, yeah, she does. And a lot of people do. I don't. So I'm this bizarre combination. I was trying to tell. I don't know what to tell you. I'm this bizarre combination of seemingly a strong woman, sure of herself, and then this sort of bewildered child who's like, oh, what's going on? I don't know. But then I realized everything I said to that guy might be total shit. Excuse me. Bullshit. Really, that I might have this story I tell myself that might not be the right one. Because I think I don't know me very well. I wonder if I do. And does that make me crazy? A little weird, maybe. I don't know. But this being on the receiving end of these penetrating questions yesterday really brought home to me how I don't think I know myself. Or I don't know. See? You see what I mean? I'm still in this state. Who am I? It's like the question, like an adolescent starts asking, why am I here? Who am I? What is my purpose? And I'm still asking those questions, I think. But I've managed to live my life while still not being sure quite what I want, who I am, and where I'm going. Jeez, that's a trick, maybe. I don't know. Hey. So, anyway. Prince Phillip. What a trooper. He has resigned. It's big news out of Buckingham Palace. 95 years old. And he said, you know what? I'd like to retire. I mean, he didn't resign. He retired at 95. His wife, the Queen, is 91 and still going strong. But he's 95 and he's had enough. Who can blame him? All that ceremonial claptrap. And he's, infamous for saying inappropriate things. I mean, I used to be appalled by him, and now I find him, just by virtue of his age and how he's hung in there, sort of, I get a kick out of him now, and I wish him a long retirement. He's 95 and he finally gets to retire, and you think being royal is like a piece of cake? I love the stuff he has said. Not a lot of it. Ends up being racist and, totally elitist. I mean, but then he is royal. Although, you know where he was born? He was born on a dining room table in a villa on the Greek island of Corfu. On a dining room table in 1921. He was a nephew of the Greek king. And Elizabeth thought he was really handsome and dashing. And he was. They've been married for 70 years. And he was actually some reporter. I cannot imagine the nerve of a reporter asking him, have you ever been unfaithful to the Queen? Some reporter asked him that. And here was his response. Have you ever stopped to think that for the last 40 years... Okay, so this would have... Whatever. This was a while ago then. For the last 40 years, I have never moved anywhere without a policeman accompanying me. So how the hell could I get away with anything like that? He didn't deny that he considered it. Would have liked to, and who can blame him? But, God, how funny. He made a lot of friends with the Canadians in 1976 when he and the Queen arrived, and he said this: "We don't come here for our health. We can think of other ways of enjoying ourselves." Anyway, it will come as no surprise to you that Rupert Murdoch's wonderful journalistic standard bearer, the Sun, did yesterday morning post a headline saying Prince Phillip dead at 95. So when we look back and try to see who destroyed everything, Rupert Murdoch's in the crowd. Roger Ailes in the crowd. Those guys, they're in the crowd. Gee whiz, Donald Trump will be there. Newt Gingrich, who brought this sort of nuclear partisan warfare to the Congress, he'll be there. So, where are we going? I'll just share with you just one item about this wonderful bill on Capitol Hill that these guys are so proud of themselves for passing, even though the majority had never even read it. And I think I mentioned the other day, and make no mistake about it, in order to get to this vote where they had even a few votes to spare, one can only imagine, and it might be beyond our imaginations, what they promised individual congresspeople. We need your vote. We have to have your vote. Or what was threatened. If we don't have your vote, I can tell you this, blah, blah, blah. Or we've got to, okay, we'll do this. The kind of, that the sausage making that would have had to go on would be so nauseating. I mean, if we saw it, if we really were subjected to seeing it, we would need to take a bath. So without holding any hearings, without giving the Congressional Budget Office time to vet the bill, these despicable hypocrites pass this thing, which I think I am hearing that, as far as anybody knows, because nobody's had time to truly look it over, this bill will, in all likelihood, throw about 24 million Americans off the health insurance rolls. Donald Trump said he would never touch Medicaid. This bill would cut $880 billion. That's almost $1 trillion over 10 years from Medicaid, which is how 74 million Americans, poor people, get coverage. Who's on Medicaid? Poor people, disabled people, elderly people. These cuts would just destroy special education programs. I cannot begin to tell you. That's just one little thing, okay? And in terms of giving people subsidies so that they can afford insurance, this bill strips $300 billion from that, what is currently available. A 60-year-old, it says here, living in Phoenix and earning $40,000 would have to pay an additional $12,370 a year to buy a policy. And that's according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. If you make $40,000, there ain't no way that you're going to spend $12,000 plus for a health insurance policy. You can't. Screw the poor, screw the poor, screw the poor, screw the children, screw the elderly, screw the poor. This lovely bill eliminates the individual mandate, which means that a lot of healthy people will not sign up, but this is the basis of insurance, right? If healthy people don't buy, then it becomes way too expensive. That's the way it works. So that leads to what people who know about such things call a death spiral. As insurers raise rates because they are left only with older people, sicker people, more people then just drop out of the insurance pool, and you end up with the death spiral. This bill that they were high-fiving each other about guts the pre-existing condition protections. So what's a pre-existing condition? I mean, it can be if you had a C-section. I'll tell you what isn't: erectile dysfunction. Oh, yeah, right. Well, we could have figured that. You look at all those old white guys there in the Rose Garden high-fiving. I bet every single one of them got little blue pills in his pocket. No, a son of a bitch named Tom MacArthur, who represents some woebegone folks in New Jersey, he put an amendment onto this monstrosity that would let individual states can waive the requirement that insurers sell policies to people with prior health problems and not charge them higher rates. There it is. So depending on what state you live in, you're either screwed or you'll be okay. And since a huge number of Americans, including, I hate to tell you, folks in Pennsylvania, live in states where the legislature is controlled by the same sons of bitches that think this is a good bill, the likelihood of pre-existing conditions being covered, not good for millions and millions and millions of Americans. So the head of Blue Shield of California said, he'd seen the bill, and he said this could well return us to a time when people who were born with a birth defect or who became sick could simply not purchase or ever afford insurance. You know how Obamacare said certain essential services had to be covered no matter what? This bill says, oh no. So people in some places might not have access to maternity care. Again, they're going to leave this to the good-hearted folks who run your state legislature. And they did it. In this bill, Planned Parenthood gets gutted because it takes all federal money away from Planned Parenthood. Now, this is part of the Medicaid evisceration. So a huge number of people who are receiving health care from Planned Parenthood are on Medicaid. They're poor people. That's their insurance. And so it's where they get their cancer screenings. It's where they get their birth control. It's where they get their mammograms. It's where they get, their yearly gynecological exams. These are millions and millions of women. It's 60% of the people who depend on Planned Parenthood. And what they've done is just strip it. Now, next week, on Thursday, I'm going to have the executive director of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania on the program. And believe me, she knows this stuff inside, outside, and has been fighting for a lifetime to help women get the health care they need. She's an amazing woman herself. So she'll come by because I'll be damned if I can keep track of all this unbelievable ugliness brought to you by the Republicans who never saw a poor person they didn't want to screw or push down a little bit more. All right. Speaking of Planned Parenthood, did you see who Trump has appointed to be the person who's sort of the point person in the Department of Health and Human Services on it's called, well, the name of the job is Deputy Assistant Secretary for Population Affairs. And that's the person in the federal government who handles and manages Title X family planning program. That's the program these guys have gutted. It's a $286 million program which serves low-income and uninsured men and women. And the person he chose has spent a lifetime working against family planning. And now she's in charge. This jerk's name is Teresa Manning. She is a former lobbyist with the National Right to Life Committee, and she is also an analyst for the loathsome Family Research Council. May I, and are you sitting down? May I share some quotations from this woman who will now be in charge of Title X family planning in the United States of America under the president, Donald Trump. This is from an NPR interview. Of course contraception doesn't work. Its efficacy is very low. In fact, listen to this. In fact, the incidence of contraception use and the incidence of abortion go up hand in hand. The head explodes. The head explodes. This woman just said, she stands by it, that the more you use contraception, the more pregnancies there are. Dear God in heaven. And then she said this. You know, family planning is what occurs between a husband and a wife and God. Great. Thank you All you Trump voters, thank you very, very much. We got Joe on the line. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Did you see, happen to hear Tim Ryan from Ohio, I don't know what he is, senator, congressman, I don't know. He said that we need to put people at age 50 on Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
And this could free up some jobs, because a lot of people, that's healthcare is a big thing, whether they retire or not.
Oh, yeah,
And
because you can't lose your health
I think
care.
that's the problem in our country. We have a different mindset about retirement, and we need to go back. There's a natural order of things, I always believe, and you should retire. When you can do it, you retire. I don't like to see old people working. If you have to, I understand that. But when you can, retire. Let the younger ones get the jobs. You had your chance. You had your turn. Because I had a laugh the other day when you said 61. About this lady who was 61 years old. I think she was a dancer or something. I can't remember. And you said middle age. I thought, that's basically my age. And I'm thinking, there ain't no fucking way I'm middle age. I don't feel middle age. I mean, and I'm not going to live another 61 years, so I don't know where they get the middle of something. They must have took the wrong math class.
All right. You're right. It's
Now, wait a minute.
Okay, so
There's
I'm
different
elderly
levels of-
then. I'm elderly. You're right.
There's old, and old. And then there's some that's the fourth old, like a 4-star general. Got it?
Yeah.
That's my...
Yeah, I know. I mean, like my mom, who's almost 95, she looks at someone like me and she sees a kid.
Oh, yeah.
It's all relative.
Right.
Okay,
And
but
another thing, they say that people are living longer. They may be living longer, but they ain't living healthy. They ain't living
A lot of
quality life.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And they keep pushing this, and I know what it is. They want to take that date for up to 75 on Social Security. Maybe 80 is someday. Each time, each generation will get screwed a little more. And it won't be that you won't get it. You won't live long enough to get it.
well,
That's
so
what
and
it'll be.
all of this would just go away if we'd adopt the system that every other frigging nation on earth has, which is universal health care. And you did see that Trump yesterday turns to the Prime Minister of Australia and says, your health care's better than ours. And you know what they got? Universal health care. Will you?
Well, that's what we need.
Again, the brain explodes. The president is there woo-wooing it up with these Republicans for passing this draconian, supposedly health insurance measure, and yet, when he's being honest, he says to the guy from the country that has universal health care, you got better coverage than us. Sometimes Trump, because his mouth just keeps going, actually says the truth. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Bye. We got Mike in D.C. on the line. In all likelihood, dejected.
How are you?
Hi. Dejected.
Hey. So I want to go back to the woman issue in Planned Parenthood, if we can.
Okay.
There's a show on Hulu called The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes.
You've heard the famous novel, right?
Yes. Margaret Atwood's novel, which I read a million years ago. And, this is about women essentially being turned into, breeding
vessels.
Breeding vessels.
Right.
Yeah.
And it really does show what Republicans want from all of you. Right? So the premise of the novel and the story, for those of you who haven't seen it, is there's a cataclysm where women can no longer procreate. Any woman can no longer procreate. So they destroy the environment, and now, uterines and having babies is nearly impossible. Only 1 in 5 babies survive. So all the women with 2 good ovaries become vessels for the rich white men. And I'm telling you, if it isn't the future, that could easily be.
So what
They
happens?
even mentioned in there that
What happens to women like me who are over the hill in that world? Do we just get killed?
your maids, and I mean there were older people, and there are like teachers, women who teach other women, how to have babies, and they didn't really go into old people much yet.
Is it true that when these rich white men are impregnating these vessels, these poor women, that their own wives are present and holding the woman?
Yeah, they have that in the movie, in this TV show too.
Unbelievable.
And the really scary thing is I'm sure they've updated it. Like one of the characters is a lesbian, and they torture her. But they won't kill anybody who can have babies. Any women,
right.
They have to have babies. So they torture them. And but the interesting thing is one of the updates is that the Constitution was suspended because of a terrorist attack.
Oh, jeez. Emergency. Right.
So for all the women who think, oh, Planned Parenthood, I don't have to worry about that, I got my own doctor.
Yeah.
This could be the future.
Yeah.
And it's clearly what Republican men want from you.
I know.
Right? Put out and then have babies.
Right.
On our demand.
Right. I mean, that's why you see.
Clearly what they want.
Yeah. It's all these white men just hooping it up. I mean, just having a ball yesterday after having stripped a lot of women of their health coverage through Medicaid. And, I mean, they are, never mind. My mind boggles. So, yeah.
And there are women in those men's lives who are backing them up.
I know.
So we can't really just blame this on old white guys.
No.
Because those old white guys are married to women.
Yeah.
And have daughters.
Right.
Who don't say anything.
No.
Or who help their dad.
Mm-hmm. Like Ivanka.
Yeah.
Like Ivanka. I just, and did you see Stephen King, the author, said he has never written anything as frightening as Donald Trump's presidency. Think of all the people who are, the smart people who are now just saying, I am terrified. George Will yesterday in his column. Anyone with a brain watching this who's not scared and not aware of what the consequences could in fact become, well, I don't know what. So, anyway.
Yeah, in The Handmaid's Tale, one of the characters even said, you mean that made-up terrorist attack?
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, in the TV show, it happens in D.C., so terrorist attack.
Well, all of these sort of dystopian dramas and books that are being written now don't seem outlandish anymore. None of them do, right?
Nope. It seemed totally logical.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
right.
We destroyed the environment, so women can't procreate. So we take over the women and say, you can have a baby, you must push out babies.
Right.
How does that not seem logical now?
I can't imagine.
Since water has poison in it, and our air and coal industry destroys our air, it seems totally plausible.
Yep. Okay.
Have a good weekend.
You too. You too. Oh, God. Okay. Chuck writes, my wife and I greatly enjoyed the Netflix series The Crown, which covers the early days of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth. I highly recommend it. Good acting, very interesting insights into the lives of the royals. That's the one in which John Lithgow plays the Winston Churchill. Yeah. I could not, and he goes on to say, I couldn't watch news on TV yesterday, nor last night. Me either. I didn't either. I saw one picture of Trump with all those white Republican guys standing behind him with smug expressions and nearly lost my dinner. Liars, all of them, starting with Paul Ryan. And to all those women and rural redneck preppers who voted for Trump, you were used, and you will never be allowed in their white male club. Well, we can tell them that till we're blue in the face. They ain't hearing it. They ain't hearing it. Milton, he sent me the lyrics too. I want to get to the lyrics part where they say, I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. How I hope and pray they will, but today I am still just a bill. And how many, I don't even think Donald Trump understood how this works. And then he goes on. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House, where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be a law. How I hope and pray that he will, but today I'm just a bill. Well, yes, then you would be a bill. So they skip over the part where it has to go to the Senate, and then it has to be reconciled, and then blah, 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 and then it gets to the president. And the president signs it, and then we should only hope that shortly thereafter, a lawsuit that the Supreme Court says this is unconstitutional. What times? What times? So did you see another thing Trump did, was it yesterday? I can't keep track anymore of the horrors. It seems like it might have been yesterday, where he signed an executive order on religious freedom. Did you? Yeah, I think it was yesterday, right? I thought we had. What do you need an executive order on religious freedom when we have the First Amendment? Yeah? And we have the Establishment Clause. So he did it with all of these nuns there. The Little Sisters of the Poor were there. They were all excited. Orthodox Jews were there. They were all excited. Evangelical ministers were there. They were all excited. He said he was going to totally destroy what is known as the Johnson Amendment, as in Lyndon, because the Johnson Amendment said that churches could only retain their tax-exempt status if they did not engage in political activity. And the guys that were surrounding the president yesterday are people who say that violates their First Amendment rights. So Trump signed the executive order yesterday saying that what he was doing, this order would, quote, prevent the Johnson Amendment from interfering with your First Amendment rights. There was a string quartet playing, too. But, I suppose he showed it around like he usually does. And then the White House released the text of the executive order. And guess what? People like the ACLU, who were primed to immediately sue over this executive order, read the thing and said, well, this doesn't do a thing. There's no reason for us to take any action. The ACLU called the order, quote, an elaborate photo op with no discernible policy outcome. Public Citizen, who was also ready to, fight this thing, said, quote, it's a sham, because what it actually does is instruct the Internal Revenue Service to enforce the law as written. namely, enforce the Johnson. How could they do this? They had these poor little sisters of the poor standing there thinking they're being given a gift, and it was absolute status quo. The executive order yesterday did nothing. It changed nothing. But he was able to sit there in the rose garden surrounded by all these people and screw them. Incredible. So I looked further. I couldn't find anybody who said it did anything. Just bullshit. Smoke and mirrors, guys. Smoke and mirrors. On to some local news. I can't even get my head around the fact that an 11-year-old girl in Beachview overdosed on heroin. 11. She was in critical condition at Children's Hospital. Obviously, her identity is not known by us. She here's the thing that blows your mind. She is described as an extremely social girl with many friends who makes A's and B's in school. She was found with a number of stamped bags of heroin around her. And one, I guess, where did I see that? Yeah, one had been obviously opened and used. This thing that's going on with heroin is beyond belief. It really is. It's not unlike, in some ways, the AIDS epidemic in that the country is slow to acknowledge what is happening till you start seeing the obits just piling up. 11 years old. And another big story that actually was broken by Pittsburgh City Paper and Celine Roberts, sitting right here, along with editor Charlie Deitch, is also front page news in the Post-Gazette today. Celine, if you want to put your mic on. Because Celine's been working on this thing for weeks. You don't think? You were talking about Judge Nahhouse to me.
Oh, well, yeah, I put out another article in early March about
Right.
him.
You don't think much of Judge Lester Nahhouse.
I don't.
See, now she's trying to sound like a reporter, right? So you don't. Okay, I won't put you on the spot.
Don't put me on the spot.
I mean,
Charlie, I don't think would like it.
Okay, yes, I agree. So the story is well, you tell the story. This guy, a young girl, 15.
She was 15 at the time.
She was assaulted over a period of months. I mean, by a kid, a football player in her high school, right? Is that the way that worked?
Yes.
And the assaults generally were like
Grabbing.
Grabbing. He's walking down the hall. He sees her. He grabs her crotch. Maybe he was listening to the president.
One wonders.
Yeah. Well, see, but that's sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, I guess the girl did report it.
She reported it. She told her mother, and they reported it to the school.
Mm-hmm.
The defendant was given a 3-day suspension and suspended from one football game. And they weren't satisfied with that result and were urged to bring it to the wider court system, not just the school system.
And so there it ends up before
Judge
Nahas.
No, another judge.
Oh.
And he is fined $300 and given 90 days of probation.
He's a kid in the foster system.
He is.
And he doesn't have $300.
No.
Right.
No, can't afford to pay the fine, which is why it's brought to summary appeals court by his the person who's appointed to his guardianship.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought it because he couldn't afford to pay the fine. And Judge Nahas decided that was true, and decided to revoke the fine. The victim and her representation weren't trying to... The DA wasn't trying to enforce any sort of fining policy. The victim just wanted an appropriate response in the form of a no contact order and 90 days probation and community service.
Okay.
And Judge Nahas decided in his, and it says so, the full transcript is available online.
I'm looking at a quote right here.
Mm-hmm. He asked the victim in court, how many times
were you assaulted?
Were you touched? How many times did he touch? And the victim responded about 6. And Judge Nahas said, well, then that's a $6 fine. That's not a direct quote. That's a paraphrase.
No, it's right here, a $6 fine, according to the PG. Mm-hmm. So that's what he said. Then, if I may just do another quote, the
DA,
the prosecutor, whoever is representing us, said, it's just highly inappropriate to tell a young girl that inappropriate touching is worth $1 a time. And eventually Nahas gets to, all right, $0 then. 90 days, no contact, 20 hours of community service. So he did give them what they wanted, but treated this like it was...
His sentencing seems to imply that he thinks that $1 per sexual assault is an appropriate and reasonable response.
So who brought this to... Somebody went to Zappala.
Yes.
To the district attorney's office.
Mm-hmm.
And said, what do you think of this? Is this okay? And Zappala said,
Yes, we called him. Charlie did.
Charlie called him.
Mm-hmm.
Says this is not okay. And so he's reporting Nahas.
He has stated that he plans to file a complaint. Judge Nahas is a senior judge, which means that he is actually retired and takes a partial commission from the state. Senior judges are appointed by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania and are still subject to the same judicial code any other elected judge would be.
Mm-hmm.
He, under this statute, is allowed to serve until he's 78. I believe he is 72 now. And so the complaint will have to be filed with the Judicial Conduct Board and then brought to the Supreme Court if it gets that far.
Well, the DA's spokesman, Mike Manco, said this: such conduct has no place in our system. He's talking about Nahas, the judge. Such conduct has no place in our system, and the district attorney will bring it to the attention of the appropriate persons. Nahas, if you recall, was the guy who, when the state Supreme Court Justice Joan Ori Melvin was convicted, he's the one who came up with that bizarre punishment of having her photographed in handcuffs. And then he ordered her to have that picture of her in handcuffs, that she was to send that to every judge, I guess, in the Commonwealth with a handwritten apology for her crimes. And that was appealed, and the appellate court said, okay, but that photo is too much, and they said you don't have to do that. So, I mean, Nahaus is he's creative.
He has a history of notable advisements in the courtroom.
Yeah. And he's already responding to your article and the PG article, and he said this: I didn't mean to mock, I didn't mean to denigrate, I just wanted somebody to give me an answer. And the reporter in the PG, who was Paula Reed Ward, who was on our show because she's the author of that book about the murders, the cyanide murders, she said Judge Nahaus was flippant during the hearing. Did you sit in the hearing?
I did not.
Okay.
I was not aware of it when it was going on.
But this, I mean, okay, well, I shouldn't, you're being a reporter, I can't.
You can ask Charlie these questions.
That's okay. I got you right here. And you're being scrupulous and journalistic, which is fine. Oh, Nancy, just for the record, when you and Celine begin to converse about the judge, suddenly the sound quality improves significantly.
Yeah, it's because...
Because why? For both of, when we're both talking, the sound quality's better?
It's because I turned down the... It's not really worth going into, but it's because of the phone system.
It's the friggin' phones!
Yeah.
Okay. It annoys Celine, so...
It's not that it annoys me. It's just that I can't
do
I
nothing.
can't fix it, unfortunately. No. It just goes into mono when I use the phone system. And so when we're not using the phones, I can give you better sound quality, which is great. But I can't fix that part of it. It's just the way the board works.
Brian wants to know, can you explain to me why there's a cap on Social Security tax on income? No, I can't. That makes no sense to me. It's just make up. I pay the amount of taxes. He's saying I end up paying the same amount of Social Security tax as someone who makes $10 million, $100 million, $500 million. No, it's obscene. It's obscene. Makes no sense at all. Why shouldn't they pay the same percentage as we pay? Because this is a country of by and for the rich. That's just it. That's it, Brian. And you know it. I remember freaking out when I was a member of a union, when I worked at WTAE-TV, and I found out that the dues were based on income. But there was a cap. And the cap was like, I don't know. The cap is that 98% of us paid, a nice little bit of change for us. And then the anchors, the guys that are making the big bucks, they didn't pay anywhere near because it was capped. Why? I remember going ballistic when I realized that, because it is clearly, inherently unfair. Kathleen writes, I'm literally in pain at my solar plexus. What are we going to do if the Senate fails to stop this? I don't know. Please ask your listeners for suggestions about how we, American citizens, might respond. Okay, well, clearly, and what people are telling us, even George Will telling us, you've got to call your Congress people. You got to write letters to the editor. You got to show up at meetings or at protests outside Tim Murphy or Rothfuss's, all these SOBs around here who voted for this monstrosity. And I'll tell you what else. If the Democratic Party around here is not already vetting and finding people, good, quality candidates to run against these guys, Congressman Murphy ran unopposed this last election. If that were to happen in 2018, then the Democrats deserve everything they get. If you're going to knock these people off, the work starts now. I don't know, Kathleen. Get involved with the party. Get involved. Make phone calls. Pledge to at least 2 or 3 times a week or twice a week, whatever. Spend a half hour. Writing letters to or calling. In the age of the internet, you can find the phones and the numbers. Stand for Planned Parenthood. Stand with Planned Parenthood now. You got to push back. Milton says this. I'm just going to get these in and then I know I'm over. He says, this quote from Representative Paul Pittenger, Republican in North Carolina, may be the most vile commentary on the conservative outlook on this replace and repeal. And here's the quote. People with pre-existing conditions may need to move to another state to gain coverage. States have all kinds of different policies, and there are disparities among the states for many things, driving restrictions, alcohol, whatever. We're putting choice back in the hands of the states. That's what Jeffersonian democracy provides for. So, you hear what he's saying? It is despicable. So, if the state you live in, where your job is, where your family is a state where you can't get health coverage, you're supposed to pick up and move. What wonderful people. Diane writes, the bill was based purely on vindictiveness. It was conceived out of hatred for Obama and wanting to dismantle anything connected to him, period. You're absolutely right. Those representatives clapping behind Trump in their victory celebration reminded me of the North Koreans who smile and clap behind Kim Jong-un. Sad, to quote the president. Oh, okay. I think that's it. I think I got you guys all in. I hope so. Thank you so much. I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you. Don't despair. Act. Act. The littlest act. Don't despair. Today, sit down, write, find a phone number. Do it. I called yesterday to the Department of Homeland Security about this mother and kid they were deporting. Just beyond belief. It's beyond belief what's going on. So pay attention and then be heard. Lots of ways to do it. Phones, writing, emails, standing in the street, marching. Don't be silent. Act. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And stay warm. And I'll see you on Monday. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.